Coming up on Locked On Rams, the biggest decision that Sean McVay made to call himself and the Rams Super Bowl 56 champions.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What an unbelievable night at SoFi Stadium last night. The Rams are Super Bowl 56 champions. I am your host of Locked On Rams, Travis Rogers. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, your team every day. And it's only been a few hours, but what an amazing night. We've got a million things to get to. I did the pregame show, the halftime show, the postgame show. Have been doing it since the Rams returned from back to Los Angeles from St. Louis 6 years ago. 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl championship in 6 years. Yeah, we will definitely take that along the way. A terrific night at SoFi last night. Tonight's podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. Okay, so let's get right to it, right? I'm a little giddy, not going to lie. It was so much fun last night at SoFi Stadium. And LA just absolutely turned out. And if there's one thing that we're very, very good at here in Los Angeles is throwing parties. And it was an incredible party, an incredible halftime show, just a great game, just a perfect little button on a postseason that was probably as good as you're ever going to see. Really, other than the wild card round, almost every game after that was extraordinary. The divisional round, the championship games, and then, of course, the Rams winning that game last night, 23-20, when Matthew Stafford found Cooper Kupp in the corner of the end zone, and then Aaron Donald doing what he does. We are going to get to all of that. Okay, so let's start right with it. The decision that Sean McVay made that I believe turned that game around. The Rams had nothing going, right? They got off to a very good start. They scored a couple of touchdowns, one to Odell Beckham Jr., one to Cooper Kupp, and it felt like that game was teetering in that, the Bengals better buckle up because this is entering 49er Bronco territory. This is entering 49er San Diego Charger territory. This is something that could get very ugly very quickly. And to the Bengals' credit, they very quickly locked in and were able to kind of stem the tide right there. They scored some points of their own. They ran a trick play. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit as well. But then the Rams' offense just stopped. It just stopped. A lot had to do with Odell Beckham Jr. going down with that knee injury towards the end of the second quarter. They really never got their running game on track at all. Whether it was Darrell Henderson, whether it was Sony Michel, whether it was Cam Akers, none of those guys were really able to find any sort of rhythm along the way, and nothing was happening. Cooper Kupp was getting doubled and tripled, and Cooper Kupp can't get open, and all of a sudden Ben Skoranek is dropping balls, and Kendall Blanton was nowhere, and Bryson Hopkins, who'd had one catch all season long, all of a sudden is an integral part of the offense, and somebody like Van Jefferson really never gets going at all, and it looks like the Rams have got nothing cooking. In fact, they had 9 yards of total offense about halfway through the fourth quarter, when they went on that game-winning drive, when they finally decided to lock in. And that is when Sean McVay made the most important decision that I think he's made in his entire coaching career. And this coaching career has been very, very good. But the decision he made with about 4 minutes to go in that game was as simple as this. Bleep it. Bleep it. Enough of this. We're not doing this. Throw it to him. Throw it to number 10. Throw it to him every single time. And that's more or less what they did throughout the entire fourth quarter. Think about that final drive. That final drive was a 15-play, 79-yard drive that took just under 5 minutes off the clock, 4:48 off the clock, 15 plays. Of those 15 plays, 8 of them went to Cooper Kupp. And we're going to go through some of these play by play because that was the decision that changed everything. Instead of trying to run the offense, instead of trying to find a way, keep them honest, to make sure that, they got to respect the run, it really went down to simple backyard football, which is, who's my best guy? Okay, that's Cooper Kupp. Get open. I'll throw you the ball. And it worked. And you could tell me 100 times that that's what they're going to do. And I don't know if it works very often because, look, those guys on the other side, those guys in Cincinnati, they're NFL players. They knew that the ball was going to go to Cooper Kupp. They knew that it was going to happen, but it just wasn't good enough. And it starts on a 4th-and-1 play. The Rams get the ball back. The fourth quarter was just the two teams punting the ball back and forth to each other. Neither team was really doing anything. I want to talk about the Cincinnati offense later on in the podcast because I thought the Rams defense did an extraordinary job. I know that they had 20 points along the way, but it really was the result of 2 plays. And other than that, the Rams defense was absolutely lights out. But they go into that fourth quarter. There's about 6 minutes left, six and a half, and they've got 9 yards of total offense. Cooper Kupp at this point has been targeted 6 times in the whole game. He got targeted 8 times on the final drive. That's the difference in that. That was the decision that made. And everybody that's in the press box where I was last night, everybody, I'm looking at Twitter and everybody is going on and on. And by the way, you should follow me on Twitter at Travis Rogers after you subscribe to Locked On Rams in the podcast here. It was throw the ball to Kupp. Throw the ball to Kupp. Look, would you rather take your chances with Cooper Kupp or with anybody else on that offense? And it was pretty obvious. We'll take our chances with Cooper Kupp. They get to 4th and 1, first down, second down, third down. They can't get anything going. You're thinking, okay, do they even have time to punt this away again? They have to get points on this drive. 4th and 1, and they do a little end around to Cooper Kupp. He makes a guy miss on the right side. He cuts it up. He picks up 3 or 4 yards, first down. Okay, now they're cooking a little bit. They're able to do it just a little bit. Then on a 2nd and 2 play from the Cincinnati 46, they hit a 22-yarder to Cooper Kupp. It was one of that little sidearm, almost no-look action from Matthew Stafford. Just an extraordinary catch there. Then it's incomplete to Van Jefferson. Then it's incomplete to Darrell Henderson. And now what do? All of a sudden, we're down deeper into their territory because of another catch by Cooper Kupp. And you're in that, okay, we're in the red zone. We have a chance to score points. You're almost thinking, okay, do you score right away? Are they going to try to let you in because they need time back? And they're in that weird part of the clock. But because it's a 4-point lead, because Johnny Hekker botched a hold on a PAT, you can't kick a field goal for a tie. So they're playing like crazy. All of a sudden, you get to a point where you have a play where there's a hold, okay? Now Cooper Kupp is held on a play. Now there's a pass interference on a play. And then, of course, the one in the back of the end zone. Cooper Kupp gets a ball from Matthew Stafford, and he takes about as tough a shot as you're going to see. Just absolutely obliterated in the back of the end zone. He goes down hard, hits the ground hard, holds onto the ball, inbounds, place erupts for about a half a second, and then you look around and you see that there's flags on the field. Offsetting penalties, Rob Havenstein, offsides, an illegal hit on the Bengals. So he takes the shot of shots that should have been the catch to put them ahead late in a Super Bowl, the catch that you play around with in the backyard as a kid, right? Okay, there's 2 minutes left. I'm going to go catch one behind the orange tree and catch a touchdown to win the Super Bowl. He got to do that. Only the price he paid was he got his block knocked off, and it didn't count. I don't know what he was feeling in those moments, but I can't imagine that there weren't some stadium spins going on, that there wasn't a little bit, what exactly is happening right now? That counted, that doesn't count. It doesn't count. They run the ball, they get to the 1 yard line, right? They run the ball, no luck. And then they do what everybody in the building knew they were going to do. They run it to Cooper Kupp. They run a play to Cooper Kupp, only they ran a play. Look, I've been watching the Rams every game since they came back here to Los Angeles. I have not seen them throw but a very, very small handful of fades to Cooper Kupp. That's just not a route that they typically use him for. That's why OBJ was here. They throw that ball to Robert Woods. They'll throw that fade to Van Jefferson. They are not throw it very often to Cooper Kupp, and they did it right there. It gave them the lead and ultimately ended up with them winning the Super Bowl because of that play and Aaron Donald and Matthew Stafford. Just I don't know if there were a lot of other options for Sean McVay right there, but that decision to basically just take the game plan, throw it off to the side and say, you know what? I spent a lot of time on this. I am a football savant. I know how all this stuff works, but you know what? Right now, tonight, 5 minutes to go in this game, we're going to stop messing around, and I'm going to throw it to Cooper Kupp over and over and over again, and it worked. 6 targets with 6 minutes and 13 seconds left in the game all night long. And then he gets 8 more on the final drive. That was the decision that changed everything for the Rams. That was the decision that let Sean McVay basically check every box in his coaching career at 36 years old, which is pretty extraordinary along the way. Okay, coming up next, I want to get into some other things going on in that game last night. And a word that you don't hear associated with the Rams all that often that I thought they exhibited in absolute flying colors last night at SoFi Stadium. But first, our friends at Built Bar, right? You know Built Bar. I mean, think about what you did yesterday at those Super Bowl parties, right? Think about all the things that you consumed, all of the drinks that you consumed, all of the chips and everything else that comes along with this party. I get it. It's a fun day. You can get back on track with Built Bar, right? Good nutrition, quality nutrition that tastes really good, that's easy to stay with. It is a treat, right? And how about this? Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on a whole bunch of their best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. Who doesn't need that in their life? Protein infused marshmallow. You wake up in the morning saying, you know what I need? Protein infused marshmallow. That's Puffs. They're a fan favorite with some incredible flavors. You've got cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, all terrific. But you got to go to built.com. Built.com. Scroll down to the macros chart, and you will be blown away by what is in these 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Let me make it easy for you. That's the good stuff. That's the stuff that you want, right? Not a lot of calories, a lot of protein, only 4 net carbs. That is the right choice. And at Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it taste delicious first. Then they had to figure out how to get all that good stuff in there as well. Go to built.com, use that promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off of your first order. Rebound from that big game party you had yesterday. Go to built.com. Don't forget the promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. Okay, thanks for making Locked on Rams your first listen every single day, your team every single day. Don't forget to subscribe to both our YouTube channel, Locked on Rams YouTube, and of course, click that little check mark on your podcast feed right there. Make sure that you are subscribed to Locked on Rams. That's good news for everybody. That's good news for me. That's good for you because you get fresh Locked on Rams content every single day. Okay, so here's a word that you have not heard used about the Los Angeles Rams all that often this season, or really in the entire Sean McVay era, and I think that it's fair. Or I should say it's not fair that it's not used more often. I'm going to throw it in there right now, and I think it's absolutely earned. The Rams are tough. The Rams are a tough football team. And when I say tough, I don't mean necessarily that they're going to go out there and get muddy and dirty and bloody and blood and guts and go out there and push you around, and they're going to grind it and they're going to run it 60 times and they're going to stuff you at the line of scrimmage over and over again. That's not the only version of toughness out there. What the Rams showed was an unbelievable resiliency throughout the entire postseason and really throughout the entire season. And here's what I mean about this. The Rams went all in on this season. The Rams made the trade for Matthew Stafford a little bit more than a year ago when just, as luck would have it, Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford are both in Cabo at the same time. And hey, why don't we go play football together? Yep, sounds good to me, coach. So they make that deal. They come in and it works, right? And it works. They win 7 of their first 8 games and everybody's very excited. And Matthew Stafford looks like an MVP candidate and everybody's very, very excited. Then they hit the skids in November. They lose 3 games in a row. And it feels like, this feels very, very familiar. A team that lacks toughness does not do what the Rams did. The Rams went in December and they won every game that they played. They go into they go into January and lose a really devastating, difficult, heartbreaking game in Week 18 against the San Francisco 49ers that not only is their 6th consecutive loss to the Niners, their number 1 rival, but drops them from the 2nd seed in the NFC all the way down to the 4th seed. And now who knows what, right? Now you got to go to Green Bay in the 2nd round instead of maybe going there for an NFC championship game. You go into the playoffs with a loss in your last game. It just felt terrible in the moment. Rams didn't care. The Rams go out there and smack around the Cardinals. So let's go back to the Cardinals for a second, right? The Rams on a Monday night, when they had 5 players go onto that COVID list about 3 hours before kickoff, they go and find a way to win the game. They had been reeling since then. The Cardinals were one of the best teams in football at that point, and the Rams dug deep, found a way to get it done, and they win that game. Then we know what happens in the playoffs. They nearly blow a big lead in Tampa, and instead of being that, oh my gosh, you add yourself to the list of the Houston Oilers or some of these other classic catastrophes, right? They find a way to get it done at the end. They rally back from a second-half deficit against the San Francisco 49ers, a team that had beaten them 6 times in a row, and find a way to win the NFC Championship. And then last night in that game, they drive the field late in the 4th quarter with really only one offensive option to speak of and find a way to win the game. And then they close the show with Aaron Donald doing what he does, both on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, just game-wrecking, just being that unbelievable Hall of Fame generational talent that he was, but he did it in the biggest moment. If that's not toughness, I don't know what it is. That is the definition of resiliency. That's what championship teams do. Maybe we're not talking fist fights. Maybe we're not talking about, yards on the ground or anything like this, but just the mental toughness that goes along with that. is extraordinary. You lose Odell Beckham Jr. in the second quarter. Look, everybody watching on TV, you don't need to be an orthopedic surgeon. The second you saw that play on the replay, you're thinking to yourself, well, that's it. He's done. You knew he wasn't coming back. You don't think that everyone else in that Rams organization is thinking, oh my goodness, we just lost our second biggest offensive weapon. Nope. They just keep going to work. They just keep plugging away. Eric Weddle in the first quarter tore his pec. Look, Eric Weddle was driving his children to school a month ago. Now he's in the Super Bowl playing with a torn pec because they needed him because everyone else was dropping like flies. He comes in, he does it, and instead of saying, hey, look, I got hurt, I'm done here today, he plays another 3.5 quarters with a torn pec. Is that tough for you? How about Odell, who everybody had written off, really, comes into L.A., is the model teammate, busts his you-know-what to put his team in a position to win a championship, and then has his knee torn up in the second quarter, and he's out. You didn't think that he's a tough guy? You don't think that he showed an incredible amount of mettle to get where he wants? How about Robert Woods? Going back to the season, Robert Woods was the heart and soul of this team. He goes down with an injury, and he's out there, and he's celebrating. The amount of toughness. Andrew Whitworth is over 40 years old, starting at left tackle in the Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? You don't have to be tough to do that. I know we think of guys, you think of the Steelers, you think of the Ravens, just black and blue teams, right? Teams that are just physically intimidating. And the Rams maybe don't play football like that, but their level of toughness, their ability to grind and fight, both mental toughness and physical toughness, could not have been more on display last night against the Cincinnati Bengals in the Super Bowl, could not have been more on display throughout the entire postseason, and definitely could not have been out on display more than the entire regular season. An incredibly tough performance from the LA Rams. And those are just a few of the things that they had to deal with last night. Jalen Ramsey gets his neck wrenched around on what's a 75-yard touchdown play to Higgins, only it's a play that probably should have been brought back the other way, offensive pass interference. How many times do you see a call go like that and it starts to snowball and it starts to spiral and it starts to go downhill? The Rams, okay, missed call. They blew it. But let's get back to work. Let's go do it all over again. Let's find a way to win this game anyway. It was extraordinary. Think about this amount of mental toughness last night in this game. We talked about this leading up to it. This is why I got to subscribe to Locked On Rams, because you never know when these brilliant pieces of analysis are going to come out. We talked about it. The lanes to victory for Cincinnati were pretty narrow. Here's what had to happen for the Cincinnati Bengals to win Super Bowl 56, and they nearly did. You're going to have to turn Matthew Stafford over. They did it twice. They got 2 interceptions out of Matthew Stafford, who had only thrown 1 in the postseason the entire way up into this point. It needs to be a low-scoring game. It was 43 total points last night. You're going to have a couple of things go your way. We just talked about that pass interference call, offensive pass interference call that wasn't made, the face mask along the way. You're going to have to run maybe a trick play and catch the Rams a little flat-footed. They do it. Joe Mixon throws a touchdown pass. The running back throws a touchdown pass to give them their first touchdown of the game. All of these things are happening. The Rams have an injury to one of their most important players in Odell Beckham Jr. Cooper Kupp has a night where he is something less than the best version of himself, or at least for 3.5 quarters he was. All of these things lined up for the Rams, or I should say for the Bengals, and the Rams still won the game. That's the part that's so amazing, that we knew that, if Matthew Stafford goes out there and lights it up, they're going to win. If Cooper Kupp goes out there and lights it up, they're going to win. If Aaron Donald and Von Miller get in that backfield, they're going to win. If they get this, there are 10 different ways for the Rams to win the game. For the Bengals to win the game, all of those things I just had to mention had to come in at the same time, and they did, and the Rams still won the game. It goes to A, show you how good that the Rams are, and B, show you how incredibly that when everything was going wrong, when all of the things weren't working, when you get a bad call, when you have an injury, when your quarterback is a little off, when your best offensive player can't quite get on track through most of the game, when Aaron Donald really through the first half, pretty quiet performance from 99, and they still won the game. If that's not toughness, I don't know what it is. Okay, coming up next, what do you do if you are Sean McVay and you've been a head coach in the NFL for 5 years and you've clicked off everything there is to do in this league? That's coming up in just a minute. But first, our friends at BetOnline. Football, It's over for the season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. And for all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach, I always like that one, is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, right? BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. Kind of bums me out to say that football's over for a while. But hey, the offseason, you got the entire season to call yourself world champion Los Angeles Rams. That feels good. That feels that's something I like to say out loud. I would imagine that that's something that Sean McVay likes to say out loud as well. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Sean McVay and what he's done in 5 years in this league as a head coach. I want to go back because the big question is, and he was asked about this by ESPN's Lindsey Theory leading up to the game, that what are you going to do if you win this? What does the next 30 years of your coaching career look like? And what he said was, well, I don't know if I'm going to be around that long. I'm getting married this summer. I'd like to have a family. And then he kind of walked it back a little bit after and said, obviously I care deeply about this and everything else. But anybody that's watched Sean McVay for even 5 minutes realizes how intense he is, realizes how much this means to him, realizes how much of his heart and soul and energy and both mental and physical are poured into every single one of these games. He is wired. Okay. So here's what he's done. He comes here 5 years ago and takes over a team that is stuck in the mud. And that's being charitable. Jeff Fisher and the Rams organization were nowhere. They come in to Los Angeles, a city that demands winners, a city that demands a certain type of show, right? It's not just be good. It's be good and entertain me while you're doing it. And they have a team that Todd Gurley described as running an 8th grade offense. And they're 4-12. And he gets sacked. So here comes Sean McVay. And Sean McVay's job is to fix this, okay? This is not a team that's close. This is a team that's 4-12 after a season of, what is it, no more of this 7-9 BS as Jeff Fisher put it along the way. He comes in, and with a few tweaks along the way, and obviously some very key free agent acquisitions that I want to talk about moving forward this week on Locked On Rams. That's why you should subscribe. He turns it in 1 year. The Rams go from a 4-12 team to a team that wins the division the very next year. Now, that's not totally uncommon in the NFL. We just saw the Bengals do it. The Bengals went from 4 wins to the Super Bowl. But this Rams team was not the most talented team in the league, and he turns it around like that. Year number 2 goes to the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 53. Okay, so in 2 years, he's won the Coach of the Year, he's won the division, he's won the conference, he's gone to the Super Bowl. They don't quite close the show. They lose that one 13-3. Back to the drawing board. They have the air quotes bad season at 9-7. They just missed the playoffs. Under the current format, they would have made the playoffs. They were the 7th team, so who knows what they would have done then. But they miss, and they come back the next year, and what do? They go back to the playoffs again. They go back and win a road playoff game in Seattle. They go to Green Bay and compete against the Packers in a game where your quarterback, who A, was not particularly good to begin with, and B, has pins in his thumb, and give the Packers a game without Aaron Donald, who's on the sidelines with a chest injury, and he's not nearly what he needed to be for them to win that game. They lose. They decide all in. Go get another quarterback. Go fix this. We need a quarterback to go with that wide receiver, to go with that defensive lineman. That's the piece that we're missing. Let's go do it. And he basically says it without saying it. We need to get better at the quarterback position, and they do. And they come back the very next year, and what happens? They win the Super Bowl. 5 years, 3 division championships, 2 conference championships, a Super Bowl championship, a Coach of the Year, an Offensive Player of the Year in Cooper Kupp, a multiple-time Defensive Player of the Year in Aaron Donald. He's won the Super Bowl. He has seeded the ground across the NFL with other head coaches, including Zach Taylor, who was on the other side yesterday. What's left for him to do? I'm not saying that he's going to get the same sort of buzz out of driving his kids to school and packing lunches that he does coaching the NFL, but we've heard broadcasting. We've heard some other things along the way. What's left? As long as there's that thing out there, there's that I still haven't done X, whatever it is, right? I still need to do this. There's only a handful of guys that have done. Think about a guy like Andy Reid. Andy Reid had spent his entire life in the NFL and gotten close a bunch of times and is widely regarded as one of the best coaches in the NFL. And it took him a lifetime to cash in a literal lifetime to cash in a Super Bowl. Sean McVay's 36. He could conceivably coach another 35 years in this league without blinking, assuming he stays healthy and interested. What are we looking at here? What gets him out of bed in the morning from this point? Maybe he's one of those guys. Maybe he's Bill Belichick. He's Nick Saban. He's a guy like that it isn't so much about winning championships. Now, it is, but it's about the process. It's about, how do I master the art of trying to win a championship? How do I figure out a way to put my team in a position so they're close to winning a championship over and over and over again? That's what turns Belichick's crank. That's what gets Nick Saban going every morning. It's not just winning a national championship or a Super Bowl. It's, how can I tweak my process so this thing runs to put us in that position over and over and over again? Maybe Sean McVay is one of those guys. I wouldn't be surprised if he is. But I think it's really interesting to think about what he may be doing over the course of the next 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, 30 years. Does he have a Dick Vermeil moment where he says, you know what, I'm going to go do something else for a while? Dick Vermeil was in the end, it was at UCLA, went to the NFL, went to the Super Bowl with the Eagles and said, you know what, this is not a healthy way to live my life. I'm going to tap the mat. He went to TV for seemingly forever. He comes back to the Rams. They win a Super Bowl. He goes to Kansas City. And it's a nice ending to the Dick Vermeil story because, again, a lifetime coaching sports, calling football games on TV, and it ends with the Super Bowl championship. Dick Vermeil was an old man by the time it was said. Congratulations to him on going into the Hall of Fame, by the way. Sean McVay is 36 years old. I can't say it again. Sean McVay is 36 years old. What do you do from here? Where do you, what gets you? Aaron Donald's kind of in the same boat. Now what? Now what? There's a lot of guys that are just getting started that, okay, I want to play in my career. I want to get to the Super Bowl. I want to win the Super Bowl. All of these guys, Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan and Zach Taylor and all of these other guys that have been around over and over again. Think about the guys that have checked this Super Bowl box. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, Andy Reid. These guys have been around a long time. Now, maybe, who knows? Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl very early in his career, went to a couple, hasn't had an opportunity to win another one. Maybe he wants to put himself in that next cut of guys that have more than one, because now that funnel gets really narrow, right? I don't want to say that winning one is easy, because it absolutely is not. But winning two is a totally different class of coach, is a totally different class of quarterback, of defensive lineman. You get into that group of two, now you're talking a really, really select group. Maybe that's what gets them going next. Maybe that's the thing that has them excited about what's coming up for the Rams' future. As for what's coming up on Locked On Rams over the next couple of days, we're going to peel the onion on the Super Bowl over and over again. Tomorrow, I want to talk about Andrew Whitworth and what he meant to this organization, and why him winning the Super Bowl yesterday could not have been a better ending to one of the great offensive lineman careers we've seen over the last couple of decades here in the NFL. Okay. That's coming up tomorrow. Thank you very much for making Locked On Rams your first listen every day. We got all of your Rams content. We've got, easy for me to say, right? All of your Rams content every single day. That's what I was trying to say. Now, for your second listen, make sure that it's your boy Q on Locked On Bets with expert analysis from Lee Sterling. The Rams are Super Bowl champions. Click that subscribe. We're going to go through it over and over and over again until the draft, until the combine, until camps open again. The Rams are Super Bowl 56 champions. Until then, I am Travis Rogers. Whose house? It is Super Bowl champion 56. Locked On Rams house is what it is.